2018 full city council meeting. The clerk will call the roll and record attendance.
Anderson Burgos, Bartley, Bresnahan, Leahy, LeBron Martinez. Here. Lisi. Here. McGee.
Here.
McGivern.
Here.
Roman. Here. Sullivan.
Here.
Tallman.
Here.
Bacon. Here. Valentin.
Here.
I'll stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. God bless America.
And the city council.
And the city. Oh, you took the council one.
And City of Holyoke City Council. We get them all. Before we get started, we'd like to invite in a special guest. If Ryan could go open the gate and escort him in. It'd be Carl Eager. Come on up, sir. All the way up. Mr. President. Tonight, we did file a request, and the full council approved it, to give a proclamation to Mr. Eager. In essence, he was selected to receive the Polish American Heritage Achievement Award. This was on October 7th. It was a date that we couldn't make, but I did invite him in. I saw him up at the mall. He's no stranger to us. He's been on the Charter and Rules Committee. He's part of HEDIC. He was up at the Salvation Army helping out there as well. They opened up a booth at the mall to raise funds and awareness to their cause, and I'll explain the barrels later. But when I saw him, I said, look, we missed the opportunity to give you an award. However, I wanted you to come in and please accept it on our behalf. Congratulations from the full city council. It's signed by me as the president and attested to by some lady named Brenna Murphy McGee. That's my wife, and the clerk. But we want to say congratulations. We're very proud of you, and thank you for everything that you do for the city of Holyoke.
You're most kind. I came to actually be at the meeting at 5:30 on tax classification, but certainly this is very humbling. I accepted in the name of volunteerism, also known as a Rotarian service above self. You all know that, serving the city as councilors, and I applaud you for all your efforts. And I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Yeah. Do a lot of Photoshop on this side, you know.
Thank you. No kiss. Gladys, thank you, dear.
Congrats. God bless. Thank you.
Councilor Tallman.
Yeah, just real briefly, I just personally want to thank Carl for all the work he's done for the city of Holyoke over the years. Carl was actually a member here when it was the Board of Aldermen many years ago. I'm not sure which year, but many years ago, and his involvement in not just volunteerism through different agencies in the city, but also in really trying to grow Holyoke and really be a part of what it means to be a Holyoker and to try to bring money into the city and grow businesses in the city, because as he stated tonight, you know, you need growth, you know, in a community to survive. And I'm really thankful that you are a part of our community and the fabric of this community. And thank you for all the work you've done over the years. It's been a lifetime thing for you. And I'm truly honored to be a member of this community with you in it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. One point of note, Counselor Anderson Burgos will not be with us tonight. He had surgery today. We did get an update from him. He's resting, doing well, but he will not be in attendance tonight due to that surgery. With that, first item is laid on the table that the Committee on Finance was referred, and we still have the taxi update. Is there any response from this person at all? This has been on here for quite some time, and we can't get a response. What is the pleasure of the council? Councilor McGivern.
The committee reported that out. I believe the recommendation was to adopt pending inspection. I quite frankly don't know who, or don't remember who made the motion to table or what they're looking for.
All right, so make a motion to approve the licenses pending inspection. All right, so the motion is to
Second.
approve. It was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Next is public comment. Looks like we have 9 people.
Motion to suspend the rules and allow all those signed up to
They-
speak.
Second.
They all can. It's up to 10 now.
Oh, that's
But yeah,
right.
if there's
I
a
kept
vote.
thinking it was 7. I'm traumatized by the 7 in the past years.
No, play good, good. But yeah, well, everyone will come. The first one is Kristen Betty of 149 Central Park Drive. Can you just tap it to make sure it's on, please? Perfect. And just as a reminder, it's a minute and a half for comment.
Okay, I gave an email to a couple people, and I received a comment back from Rebecca Lisi that she would pass my concern on to the town solicitor's office. However, I would like to bring it to everyone's attention. It's there are small cell towers which are being promoted in order to create smart cities and driverless cars and to connect the Internet of Things. And so in order to have that kind of access to the Internet, they want to put towers all through towns and cities. And so the FCC just passed a rule to allow them to be everywhere in every town without any control. And so in order to enact this, the towers have to be very powerful, and they can get close to the limit of the FCC's controls. And the FCC controls are extremely high. And historically, we haven't ever had it to be even close. And in order to have that kind of connection, the towers have to be at least 1/3 of a mile apart. So, so I had emailed a few people, and as I commented, Rebecca had passed it on to the town solicitor. However, there was an ordinance that she passed on that Pittsfield had created, but there are other towns that have created their own ordinances which have other ideas, and I would just like the town council to look at trying to protect the community and to encourage the town solicitor's office to look at all the ways. There's also the town of Burlington who passed an ordinance that had other ideas, and there are some other ideas posted online at the website Last Tree Laws. So I would just like attention to that. And also, I have some papers here. The NTP, the National Toxicological Program, they just completed a study that found that cancer is a clear connection to wireless. And then I have this other paper on the towers, and then I have a paper on the power levels increasing. So I can leave that here. And I guess that's pretty much it, but I would just like to add that if we have our own fiber optic, I would just like to ask that we look at Comcast and create our own municipal fiber optic office, if at all possible, because we have Holyoke G&E. So
We're over the time frame,
Yeah.
but no, before you go, Ryan Allen will collect the information that you have, and we can take that. If that's okay?
Mr. President,
Counselor Bacon?
can that information be sent to ordinance committee, please? Because we have an order on the small cell towers in committee.
All right, so there is an order.
If that could be
So we'll
submitted.
have that attached to the
That way
order
we'll
in
have it
ordinance.
For committee.
Just,
Thank you.
Miss Betty? This is gonna go to ordinance, of which there's an order there, and I'll give your information to the ordinance committee, so when they bring up that ordinance, they'll invite you in. Okay? Next is Peter Williams from 101 Pearl Street.
Hi, I'm Peter Albert Williams from 101 Pearl Street in Holyoke. Most people know me as Al. In addition to being a resident and homeowner in Holyoke and a taxpayer in Holyoke, I've been working in community media for about 20 years now, and I have a very long history of attending these meetings, producing these meetings, producing nonpartisan media for communities. So I've seen a lot of them, and I've never spoke at one as a resident before, so this is kind of a new thing for me. And I'm here to speak today about the sign ordinance that was recently passed, or the amendments to the sign ordinance. And I brought with me a sign today that I have from my yard. It might be hard to see, it says ceremony. I was just married on September 29th. We made these signs for our wedding. It's in my lawn. According to the new sign ordinance, I can't place this in my lawn without registering with the city of Holyoke between December and March. And I personally find that a little bit outrageous. I find it really irresponsible to have my elected officials turn around and limit my free speech. I don't think that's constitutional. I think it's also displays a real lack of fiduciary responsibility. Any examination of this ordinance, which is already entering federal court with the ACLU, is going to cost the city money, which means I'm going to have to pay for a lawsuit that is a violation of my own civil rights. It's unacceptable to me. And I would really strongly urge the council to reconsider and revoke this sign ordinance. It makes no sense to me. There's no reason for signs to be regulated between December and March and not otherwise. I've heard excuses that this is related to political signage, but it's not the responsibility of this body to determine what times of year are political and what times of year are not political. It doesn't make sense. In addition, it just adds a layer of bureaucracy to a process. As a homeowner, I should be able to display whatever signage I'd like to display. I would strongly encourage you to re-examine this. Thank you.
Next is Ann, did I say this right, Bisher from 101 Pearl Street?
No, that's okay. It's Anne Catherine Bisbee is my legal name. I go by Kathy, and
How do you spell the last name? please?
Bisbee, Bisbee.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right.
So I happen to be Al's new wife, in fact, and it's also my first time speaking as a public citizen. I've spoken on behalf of organizations, nonpartisan free speech organizations and community media organizations as well for my entire career. I'm really concerned about this new ordinance. I've also been, not exactly in your seats, but I have been an appointed elected official. I know what it's like to have to hear from the public and have to hear complaints about things like signs, probably. But I really think that the language in this is very unclear. And that's probably why the ACLU took it to the federal court. It's not just because it's unconstitutional by our U.S. Constitution, but it's also unclear what constitutes a sign. There's nothing in the ordinance that tells me whether I can have Halloween decorations that have words on them as a sign, a flag. I don't know if I can put a flag up. I'm very unclear on what this ordinance really is saying. The other thing, I think that this is really a waste of our city's tax dollars, and it's really a waste of staff time. You're going to have to have a lot of people managing this. There's signs all over Holyoke. And I don't think it's the government's right to determine what I can put on my property. And I really encourage you to repeal this, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Ken from 277 Suffolk Street. Ken, can you just spell the last name?
Sure. L-E-F-E, B as in Bravo, V as in Victory, R as in Rabbit, E as in Echo.
Thank you, sir.
And my comment is just related to the sign ordinance as well. I am not a lawyer, however, a quick review of civics would simply show that this is a legal minefield when it comes to these kinds of restrictions. The ACLU is certainly in great company. In the past, the International Municipal Lawyers Association has discussed this extensively, and generally these kinds of restrictions do not generally come out in favor of the municipality enacting them, with rare exception. Again, I would just like to reiterate what the previous speakers have said, that I think this would be time better spent on other more pressing matters related to the city, and that this is just in poor taste in terms of what it does to affect business as well as political speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Paula Fierro from 25 Morgan Street.
Hello, good evening, Councillor. I'm here tonight to ask the Council to rescind the sign ordinance. And partially every lawyer I talked to has told me that is anti-constitutional. We have exposed the city to an expensive and unnecessary lawsuit by the ACLU. But also, I think the thing that I find most disturbing about the ordinance is the vagueness of it. Partially, it seems the original purpose for the ordinance was to preserve aesthetic appeal and traffic safety. Please, let me remind you that it's not the point of political sign to be beautiful, but there is beauty in people that care for their city, for their monument, for people of other races. And that, you know, if somebody, and also what is a political sign? Is caring for Mater Dolorosa a political act? Is having a sign, Black Lives Matter, just caring about African American in this country, or is it a political sign? What determines that? Those are very hard questions to answer. Also, I just want to make a point to say that I have called the police department for people who have parked their car on my sidewalk. And all I have to say is I walk at night, and this makes it less safe. And they were there, and they issued a ticket. I'm sure if a sign caused traffic danger, our police department would be there. But I also think that I could probably knock on the door of my neighbor and ask him to remove it for safety's sake. And they probably would do that. So I think pretty much that is, but I think we have to think very hard. And once we are really, we are definitely breaking freedom of speech. But second, we're trying to define things that cannot be defined easily or without being accused of breaking the First Amendment. So please consider that very, very seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Josh Knox from 40 Morgan Street.
Good evening. My comments tonight are my own as a Holyoke resident and do not reflect any of the views of any organizations with which I'm affiliated. I want to begin, as I always do, by thanking all of you for your service to the city. I understand that being a city councilor is a lot of work for very little reward. I appreciate your efforts to improve the life for Holyoke residents. I also applaud your efforts to continue to improve the legibility, applicability, and usefulness of our zoning ordinances. It is in everyone's interest to make sure that our city laws are easy to understand and enforce and consistent with state and federal law. Finally, I wanted to share the experience I had spending some time trying to catch up on city business. I'm not always able to be here. So I was interested in finding minutes or recordings of various city council boards and city committees, and I wanted to share my experience surfing around the city website with you. To start, I like the quantity of information displayed on the homepage. I like that it showcases relevant news and events. I also like that the recordings made by Holyoke Media are available on the site, and they're fairly easy to find. But I'm a little confused about why the search feature just searches the calendar. Why can't the search feature on the Holyoke website actually search the Holyoke website? I think that should be looked at. If you try that little search box, it just comes up with calendar results. It doesn't actually come up with any other pages. In the end, I wasn't able to locate where there was a list of city council committees anywhere on the website. There are entries in the calendar, but can they be organized in a sensible fashion from the Government in Holyoke page? There's a nice page that has all kinds of things relevant to government in Holyoke, and the city council committees should be listed there. And I think there should be a link created to those committees from the councilors page. There's a nice councilors page which lists all your contact information and such. There should be a link from there as well. Perhaps improving citizen access to city government in this way is a relatively easy task that we can all agree is reasonable and which can be accomplished in the near future. Thank you for listening to my thoughts. I wish you all happy Thanksgiving and happy winter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is (231) West Franklin Street, and it's meshed with another one that's Elizabeth at 495, so they're kind of blended, and it says a Thomas Hall.
Yeah.
So if I get this right.
Sarah Marie Belcastro and Thomas Hall. We live at
Sarah.
231 West Franklin Street. No, Sarah Marie, not Sarah.
I was just getting the first part, sorry. So Sarah Marie and Tom Hall.
Yeah. Sarah Marie Belcastro and Tom Hall.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Hi, thanks for the public comment period here. We appreciate it. This is our first time here. We just want to, as other people have done, recommend that the city council rescind the sign ordinance that was recently passed.
A particular concern I have is about the differential chilling of speech because of the part of the ordinance that requires registration of signs. Somebody like me is not going to be chilled by an ordinance that says I have to register things because I will just tell the person in my household who works across the street to go pick up a form or whatever, bring it home, I'll fill it out, I'll get it sent back. I have a lot of cultural capital, let's say. But people who are single parents with children or who work multiple jobs are not going to have the time or the wherewithal to go navigating the city website or coming down to City Hall to figure out exactly how to register their signs. And so it is going to be a chill of speech in a differential sense in that way. And I think that's highly problematic in a city that has lots of people who are not rich. And I think that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you both. Next is Elizabeth from 495 Appleton Street, apartment 3.
Good evening, counselors and everyone else. I love my city, and I want it to be the most vibrant, clean, and livable city possible. I do not accept the narrative about having to choose between clean energy and good jobs. This is about the pipeline. The cannabis industry is being courted to come to Holyoke to provide jobs for residents, but this industry is extremely high energy use. I had the opportunity to go to the cannabis convention that happened at El Mercado a few months ago, and I found out that in Denver, the cannabis industry uses 5% of the power of the entire city. And I'm not against the cannabis industry, especially if it provides good jobs, especially for people of color and for people who are formerly incarcerated for drug-related charges. I'm all for that. I want the residents of Holyoke, especially in the lower wards, to have access to jobs that pay a living wage right here in Holyoke. But it seems disingenuous, and I had the chance to speak with some folks from the cannabis industry that they were told, you know, come to Holyoke, we have lots of clean, inexpensive energy. And then around the same time, I don't know the exact timeline, we were drawing up a memorandum of understanding with Columbia Gas, between HG&E and Columbia Gas, to expand fracked gas infrastructure, and they call it natural gas, but methane gas is 30 times more harmful as a greenhouse gas than other carbon sources. So what good are these jobs if we can't breathe? And many people probably already know that Holyoke, Springfield, they have really high asthma rates. And just because the pipeline stops at the border, that doesn't mean the gases stop at the border. So we will be affected by that. And also with the recent explosions that happened in Lawrence, I have very little faith in Columbia Gas. Being an honest broker, being able to deal with emergencies if they come up. There's a saying that gas pipelines, it's not a question of if they leak, it's a question of when they leak. Eventually they all leak. And there's leaks all over Western Mass, and I don't have faith in Columbia Gas that they're gonna keep us safe. So the big influx that we had in Holyoke of people from Puerto Rico was because of climate change. The storms are getting bigger. Most of us in this room know that it's an absolute crisis that's at our doorstep that has affected Holyoke. This particular gas that comes to us, 94% of it comes from the Marcellus shale fields in Pennsylvania. I grew up in Pennsylvania.
Just a point, you're a little over time, so.
Okay, so I'm gonna cut to the chase. We have 12 years to save our planet. Scientists tell us if we don't do it in the next 12 years, forget it. Our planet is gone. If you have children, if you have grandchildren, I would be really scared. Why are we investing in fossil fuel infrastructure that has 20 to 30 years shelf life when we have 12 years to do something really drastic? I'm just gonna wrap up because I'm over time. I asked the city councilors to ask the mayor's office, city planning, and HG&E to rescind the memorandum of understanding with Columbia Gas so that we can have clean air, a safe community, and we can save our planet. Thank you.
Next is Jacqueline Velez of 99 Tokeniki Road.
Hi. Thank you for this public comment period. In 2017, HG&E signed a memo of understanding with Columbia Gas, as Elizabeth just stated, the same company responsible for the explosions and fires in Lawrence, Andover, and North Andover on September 13th, to build a new 6-mile pipeline to start in Agawam and end by Holyoke's southern border. When at the same time, HG&E reported 217 leaks in their pipeline infrastructure. They will take Holyoke off the Northampton lateral so that we will receive our gas from this new pipeline called the alternate backfeed to serve Holyoke, East Hampton, and Northampton, which happens to currently be under moratorium. I'm an organizer with Neighbor to Neighbor. We helped to get the Mountown coal plant closed, which is now a solar farm with about 17,000 solar panels. We keep our ear to the streets by door knocking. We are well aware of what affects Holyoke's residents positively and negatively. Due to this community engagement, we've collected close to 300 signatures of residents from every ward of Holyoke requesting a public forum, including Mayor Morse. Many folks let us know they did not know a new pipeline would be built. Many voiced their concerns about health implications and further investment in fossil fuels. I'm not a scientist or a mathematician, but I do know to invest in new pipeline infrastructure equals being committed to that for 20 or 30 more years. And we've been promised as residents by some city officials that Holyoke will work to become a 100% green city. To invest in more fossil fuels goes against that promise. This disproportionately affects low-income communities of color, as we saw in the Merrimack Valley. We'd be taking a step back as a city if we proceed with this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. And last on the list is Price Armstrong from 57 Park Slope. Actually, wait. You might not be last. There's one more after that, sorry.
Oh, okay, so
Second
then
to
you
last.
did save the best for last. So I'm, yes, Price Armstrong from 57 Park Slope. I'm also here just to talk broadly about climate change in this pipeline. I'm not going to pretend to know all the details. I leave the details of this to advocates like Jackie, yourselves, Holyoke Gas and Electric. I will speak broadly and say, you know, I could talk about the fact that, as all of you know, California is on fire right now. 2017 was the record for wildfires in California, but 2018 has unfortunately broken that record. I could talk about Hurricane Michael, which was the strongest hurricane to ever make landfall in the panhandle of Florida. We've already heard about Hurricane Maria. I mean, the list sort of goes on and on of things that should be really alarming, but instead I'm going to talk about maple syrup, because that was what really lit the fire under me for climate change several years ago, which was there were environmental scientists and actually farmers talking about how the line for maple syrup production is moving ever further north. And so within, you know, the next 10, 20-ish years, there will be no more maple syrup in southern New England. That includes here. So, you know, I don't want to see sugar shacks be a sort of like historical curiosity. To me, maple syrup is a really important part of our cultural heritage. You know, maybe it's hard to take these sort of high-level concepts of what is climate change, what are, you know, what are the impacts. Like, this is an impact that's really tangible and in front of us right now. So I would just close by saying that, you know, 12 years. I hope that we can drill this in. 12 years, we certainly can't solve the problem. And Holyoke is a leader. I mean, I think all of you know that Holyoke is a leader when it comes to clean energy, and we should feel really good about that. But that doesn't mean that we can sort of rest on our laurels. I really encourage you to do whatever you can to move beyond fossil fuels to the energy of the future, which is, of course, renewable energy, you know, taking Holyoke into the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And last is Diane Thorsten of 158 Morgan Street.
I'm here again to speak in opposition to this temporary sign ordinance. This ordinance is, I believe, an unconstitutional violation of free speech. It's vague, unclear, and its implementation is going to be very difficult based on that alone. There is also overriding opposition to it among people in the community. A number of people I've spoken with are very, very upset about this. To direct valuable city resources toward the implementation of the sign ordinance is a serious mistake. We already are facing a lawsuit brought by ACLU. The adverse publicity that this is going to bring to the city of Holyoke, as well as the financial liability created by the ordinance, makes it essential that we repeal the ordinance. There are so many problems of a serious nature affecting this city that I can only hope we will redirect our attention and our resources to address those issues rather than something that is of really no concern to people. And as an aside, when I moved here, one of the things that I really liked about Holyoke was looking at the signs that said to everybody, "You're welcome here." And it made it a pleasant place for me to live, and I just would hate to see these just untenable strictures placed on people having these signs in their lawn. Thank you.
Thank you. There is no one else for public comment. Did someone miss it? No, then that will end public comment.
Mr. President?
Yep.
I understand that there's a late file order to create a moratorium on.
I have that. Is there a motion?
Motion to motion to suspend the rules and allow us to discuss late filed orders.
Second.
Motion is to suspend the rules to take up late file orders. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? There is a late file order E from Councilor McGee, Sullivan, Tallman, McGivern. Order that the city council revisit the new sign ordinance and place a moratorium on its enforcement in light of the ACLU concerns with the language, and it is important to make sure people's rights are not violated. Councilor Lisi.
Thank you. Under discussion.
Under discussion.
I would like to be added to that order.
Adding Councilor Lisi.
I would also suggest a friendly amendment. I mean, I will get behind a moratorium if the body feels that that's the proper course of action, but I think that It would be a stronger message and perhaps give us more standing in court to defer damages and fees that we may have to be responsible for if we lose the case. If we go as far as saying we'd like to rescind that segment, the most recent passage of the sign ordinance.
We can make that amendment.
Second.
So the motion would be to add in,
That instead of moratorium, that we rescind the most recent changes.
all right, so the city council revisit the new sign ordinance and rescind.
President, if I could make a suggestion?
Oh, hold on, I'm just putting in the rescind its enforcement. That was seconded, so now Councilor McGivern.
We need two separate orders. If we're going to act on a moratorium this evening, once we vote on the moratorium, the ordinance, what's before us would be a completed task. And if we wish to also review the language of the sign ordinance, we need an order that can go into the ordinance committee by charter so that the ordinance committee can review it. They're two separate actions. We can't combine them together.
Correct. Councilor Bacon.
I would also note, if we take an action to rescind the portion that was recently passed, we have previously been advised that our prior sign ordinance did not meet a constitutional test, which was part of the reason for the revision. So we will not clear ourselves of legal jeopardy by doing that.
Councilor Lisi, then Councilor.
So if I understand the point that Councilor McGivern made was that a moratorium is one action that we could actually take tonight. The rescission of the most recent language that we adopted would require it to go through the ordinance process and be drafted into legal form with text changes?
Correct.
Okay. So I will then file a separate late file to do the rescission as well and send it to committee. However, I do want to address the point that Councilor Bacon raised about even with a rescission, that we wouldn't have the ability to have greater legal standing. I think the suit is specifically against the most recent changes, and so therefore I think in terms of protecting ourselves from damages in this suit, that I think the rescission is a positive motion that this body can make, and I'll be filing that now.
Okay. Councilor Roman.
I just have points of clarification and question, I think more so for the law department. So I would like to suspend the rules if I can, to ask the law department some
Second.
questions.
Motion is, well, you can ask questions about it. If it gets to the point where it's going to be a legal issue, you have to go to executive session. So motion is to suspend the rules to allow legal department to come up to answer questions within limitations. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Through you, Mr. President, Crystal, I just have a question that goes back to the heart of Councilor Bacon's point. We created and drafted, and I can't remember how many public hearings we were in, and the reason why I supported it was because our current sign ordinance was deemed unconstitutional, correct?
Correct.
And then the reason for the vagueness was because our current sign ordinance, our prior sign ordinance specifically targeted political signs, correct?
The reason for the vagueness?
Well, the people are claiming it's vague now, but it's more broader now because the prior, I'm just asking about the prior sign ordinance that we had before, because I want to know if me voting on a rescission, I'm just confused by this new, I didn't know that these late files were happening, because I would have loved to have that discussion, but I guess it's going to dictate how I vote on these tonight, because I don't know, like this just seems like a whole legal mess.
We can't vote on rescinding it tonight.
Yeah.
Has to go to committee.
It has to go to committee.
You have to revisit the language of the ordinance that was passed in order to address the going concerns.
So what we're
one
voting
is
on-
to pass a moratorium and say, hey, stop, just wait a minute, before enforcement of this, let's bring it back to committee, review it with legal again as to what's the overall issue.
Right.
Then you'll have a separate order to say rescind this one.
Okay.
Due to some.
I understand. I was just
some
asking for
vaguenesses and stuff.
clarification.
And then you'd have to come up with a new way of dealing with the issue.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yep. Anyone else? Council President.
I just want to remind the city councilors before everyone starts filing emergency orders for late files,
we have to set a protocol about what are our emergency orders. I think that if somebody filed an order for the next agenda to have this issue revisited, I think that makes more sense than us filing emergency orders, because emergency orders, late file orders, are for emergencies. Now, if the ACLU decides to sue us for an ordinance that was passed, I don't think 2 weeks is gonna break the camel's back here. So I mean, as passionate as everybody wants to be, and now that the audience is here and everybody wants to grandstand, perhaps let's be mindful of the fact of the city council rules. Late filed orders are for emergencies. Okay, I agree with everyone that spoke tonight about this. I agree with that, but let's just throw out the city council rules, because they're of no use to us. We file late filed orders for whatever is hot, the hot topic. If the ordinance doesn't work, and there's many ordinances that don't, file an order. Let's revisit it in 2 weeks. The ordinance committee is meeting next week. This is not of emergency necessary. I get it that I agree with everyone that spoke tonight. 100%. You're absolutely right. Freedom of speech, I agree with you. But logistically, it's really not an emergency. So, somebody else has an order that they want to file, a late file order, and then, well, it's important to them. This is not, a late file order is because we need to get money to a department so that department can run. We need to get a grant into the office so the grant comes to us, because there's a time limit on this. Late file orders are not, because the public doesn't know about this. This is an open meeting law violation as far as I'm concerned. These late file orders that we just decide to file because, the time is right. We got ordinance on 1 week, we got city council on the other week. This is not, the ACLU's got a lot on their plate. They're not gonna be banging on our doors in 3 days.
All right, Councilor Valentin.
Thank you. Just as a reminder, I think it was October 16th was the meeting where we were presented with a veto from Mayor Morse, and that was an opportunity for people to vote how they felt very strongly about. And only 3 of us here voted actually against overriding the mayor's veto. And that was LeBron Martinez, Lisi, and myself, and Anderson Burgos was absent. So I think it's great that there's an order right now saying that let's talk about this moratorium, let's talk about rescinding. I think that's great. But I do want to remind folks that I think it was just October 16th that there was a vote right here about a veto from Mayor Morse, and there was a vote 9-3 to override the mayor's veto. So that was one opportunity to, quote unquote, get this right based on the feedback we've heard from our constituents. Second is that was October 16th, and literally 30 days later, we received the announcement of the ACLU lawsuit. So sure, they may have a lot of things on their plate, but in 30 days, they got this going. So I just want to remind folks of timelines, because it's very convenient how people forget certain timelines. We've had conversations here about what's legal, what's not legal. In the 4 or 5 years I've been here, we've talked about Christmas trees. People wanted an ordinance about Christmas trees. Remember that? We've talked about political signs now. We've talked about all these decisions that this body wants to make to literally police this city. And here we are again. There was talk about needle exchange. That went to court. Can we follow the pattern here? That's what we're hearing from people. Is there is a pattern here, we need to look at it, and we need to stop minimizing, and we need to stop going to the whole, we'll be fine, nothing's gonna happen. Because within 30 days of that veto being overridden, we had a lawsuit from the ACLU. So if you're not following the timeline and you're not seeing the dominoes that are falling, you need to open your eyes.
Councilor Lisi.
Thank you. I just wanted to make it really clear that we are being sued. There is a lawsuit, and that I understand that our court date is happening on Thursday of next week. And so while we may not be able to rescind the pieces of the ordinance the sign ordinance that have gotten us into trouble. I think if we make the motion and demonstrate that we understand the error of our ways, that it would give our legal team the ability to reduce the damages that the city is going to incur.
Councilor Bacon.
I just want to say, can we move on the motion relative to the moratorium and sending the matter to ordinance so that we can look at the language and find out where the problems may lie? There have been a lot of general statements made. We did have, I think, 3 or 4 different public meetings relative to this ordinance. I invite my colleagues to come to these meetings so that you know what the discussion is, because now we're in a completely different discussion that does not have the benefit of those prior public meetings. And so I think we have to follow a good process. If there's areas of the language where it can be cleaned up, the whole goal was to make it constitutional where it had not been constitutional. So I'm sure all of us will be happy to pull it together in a way to make sure that it does meet the test. I can only say, as a member of the committee, chairing the committee, there was no intent of the committee to violate freedoms of speech. So if there's issues with the language, let it come back, let us clean it up and take out things that may be problematic that were unintentional. Thank you.
So just for clarification to the public, 'cause I know we've all gotten the emails and the calls. For the history lesson on this was the ordinance committee was addressing an issue in the ordinance already. No member of this committee will ever try and take away your rights. I know I got that as an email. You're taking away my First Amendment right. There's not one member in this chamber or prior who served on this board will ever take away your rights. That's never the intent and never will happen. They're trying to address an issue of which, if the ACLU now thinks that that is an issue of which the language should be fixed, then we can do that. Hence, that's what we're here for. I know it gets a little heated here, but one thing I did notice from the members coming up to speak at public comment, it was very cordial. Josh Knox was absolutely outstanding in the sense of just saying, thank you for what you do. That's kind of the tone that we need in this community. I know it comes at you a little, well, I can't have a sign. That's never the intent. You can put up signs as much as you want. It was to address an issue. So I hope that's clear to people. I know I called as many people back, and there's some that I still haven't called back, but not any member on this council will take away your rights. It's just fixing, as I always say, there are glitches in the ordinance. That's what we're trying to do. So with that, if you ever have a question, call us back. This would be to set up a moratorium so that we can address the ACLU and tell them, you really don't need to file the lawsuit. We can work with you.
Can you add me to that order, please?
No.
I'll get the ACLU on you, Todd.
And for those who did come and those who are at home, happy Thanksgiving. We truly appreciate you coming down prior to a holiday start in 2 days. So adding Councilor Valentin to the moratorium and also to, oh, you're there too, okay. Just making sure. So the late file E is the one on a moratorium.
Motion to receive and adopt.
And that
Motion is to receive and send.
to ordinance.
Ordinance.
So you have to receive it and send an ordinance, and it'll be adopted.
The moratorium? That's what you just said.
Well, yeah, for the moratorium, you receive and adopt. You are correct.
But
And then copy to ordinance would
I
be the
thought the
procedure.
language in that order included the
No,
review of
the
language.
second one
Is it a
will.
separate
There's
order?
a separate order.
Oh, okay.
So the first order, so we're clear, is that the city council revisit the new sign ordinance and place a moratorium on its enforcement.
Is it? Okay, that's.
In light of what we've talked about.
Mhm.
So that's to receive, adopt, refer a copy to ordinance. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The next one is late file F that's accompanying it, which was a request of the council, that order that the most recent changes, November 7th, to the sign ordinance be rescinded.
And it's not November 7th, I'm sorry. I don't have the exact date.
We'll look it up.
Okay.
The original vote
Yeah,
without the veto?
Mhm.
October 2nd.
October 2nd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How Juan was going to vote, right?
So October 2nd.
Thank you.
2nd or 7th?
Second.
Second. Sorry, thank you for the clarification.
That was the original vote.
Okay.
That then the veto came after that. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, October 2nd. Counselor Bacon?
So as I'm understanding it, the first reading of the order indicated we could revisit the sign ordinance to modify language. This most recently filed late order is only rescinding. It's not giving the committee a charge to revise, which is the discussion under late file E that we
You
just
can
had.
rescind it, and then you're going to have to revise anyways
But-
because you have the ongoing
Right,
issue.
so I would offer an amendment to this, rescind to revise. We need to have a charge to correct it.
So
We just filed it, so I don't see why we can't amend
that
it.
the most recent changes to October 2nd to the sign ordinance be rescinded, period, and that the committee, or
Sent to
Counsel-
committee to revise.
Counselor Lisi.
I'm just going to argue against making this sloppier. I think we really want to send a clear message that we have it in our, in the jacket in some way, that we're looking to rescind the ordinance that has gotten us in trouble. I do have an order already filed from 2 meetings ago now saying that we do a comprehensive review of the entire sign ordinance. So that will give us the ability to revisit and revise. But I think the message to rescind needs to be out there loud and clear.
Counselor Bacon.
Thank you. I think while I've articulated why we did what we did and that we can work to make it clearer, I think to rescind in whole the entire work product that was reviewed and approved with a supermajority of the council, to just throw it away because a complaint has been filed about something, sort of throws out our whole process. I think we need to be thoughtful, and I think we need to be prudent, but I think if in the face of having a complaint filed for every single thing that we do, we are then going to rescind what we do without just simply putting a process in place to evaluate it, I think is kind of a knee-jerk
Well, I think,
reaction.
to respond to that, I think what this is saying is, to the ACLU, we are filing an order to rescind it. That's not being approved tonight. That's receive and refer to ordinance, to then have ordinance act upon it. You could rescind it, you could revise it, or you could say, we're just going to follow up with an order that's already in there to redo it however we want. But this is a message to them, in essence, to challenge standing within a court proceeding, that, look, you're suing us for this, but yet it has been rescinded, so your standing for the argument is now moot in a court of law.
Okay, I take your legal point on that.
Of which, for you, you could come back and say, I don't want to rescind. I don't think we're going to do that, but that would be the counter to it.
Okay. Thank you.
So a motion would, I'll read it again, just so we're all clear. I know it's going back and forth. And I'd like to add my name to it, if that's all right. So Lisi Valentin McGee, order that the most recent changes, October 2nd, to the sign ordinance be rescinded. That will be received and referred to ordinance. All
Second.
clear? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Mr. President, if we could suspend the rules and take up items number 6 and 25 as a package, please?
6 and 25?
Yes, please. They're going to both go to...
So this is communication. 6 is a petition for citizens for the Hoyoke Gas and Electric Moratorium. And 25 from Council Roman and Valentin, that a resolution to the Hoyoke City Council, November 15, 2018, a resolution opposing the expansion of the gas infrastructure, calling for an increase, increased development of renewable and clean energy sources. And I do have both.
Motion to send to DGNR, please.
Second.
Motion is to send 6 and 25.
With a copy to the mayor's office and the HG&E, please.
All right, so receive, send to DGNR, copy to mayor and HG&E.
Can we please add my name to that?
Adding
To 25.
Counselor Lisi to 25. Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Mr. President? I wish I said it Just under discussion.
Counselor
Yeah, sure,
Bartley.
just under discussion. With the makers of that order, we can take that up December 19th. Thank you, Ryan. December 19th. If you would please contact the mayor's office and the gas and electric, and just make sure that they are available to attend, if you would organize that. And that meeting will be for 6 o'clock. Okay? Thank you.
6 p.m. or 6?
Yeah, Counselor, thank you for that. Yes, it's a Wednesday. Yeah, thank you, Counselor. So, Ryan, what is it, the 19th? Yeah, it's a Wednesday, yep.
All right. Back to communications, number 2 from the city clerk. It's the minutes of the November 7th meeting. Motion be to receive.
Motion received.
Second.
Motion is to receive. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 3 is from the Personnel Director. Order from Councilor Bresnahan regarding treasurer certification and licenses.
Motion to receive.
Second.
Motion is to receive. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 4 is from Kip Foley, a letter of interest to serve as the CPA committee as an
Receive,
appointee.
send to public service.
Motion is receive and refer to public service. All those in
Can I make
favor?
a friendly amendment
He's
to
a
that?
reappointment, right?
He's a reappointment, so I'd like to make a motion that we approve the reappointment for a 3-year term for Mr. Foley.
Second.
Oh, hold on a second. There is,
What's that?
there is
He's up.
17 is to reappoint. I did file a order.
Well, motion to
council.
suspend and take up 17.
Motion is suspended,
Second.
take up item 17. All those in favor?
With- Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? This would be to reappoint Mr. Foley, of which he's now turning into the 3-year term, the way it was
that's the
explained to us.
motion.
Second.
So with that, I think we do a roll call for that, wouldn't we, or?
I think so.
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
All right, so roll call to, once again, you don't have to, but it would be to reconfirm Mr. Foley. Clerk will call the roll. Counselor, I'm sorry. Counselor Owen, yeah.
I just want to make it very clear tonight that I'm going to be just throwing out a random name tonight. Not that I don't love Mr. Foley, but I believe that in this process, as especially the CPA comes up, specifically talking about city boards and commissions and wanting more diversity, and including that board, I would love to see more individuals from the lower wards. So I'm going to be throwing out a Ward 2 name of someone who applied for it, not that they're here in this room, but only because I feel that when this position was there, I think we should have opened up the process. Not saying that Kip's not a great guy, I don't think we should reappoint him, but I don't want him to take it personally when he hears me throw out someone from my ward who applied for it in the past. But I just want to make that very clear for the record, Mr. President, not to say that this body doesn't have the right to reappoint Kip. I think he's done a great job on the commission, as has our colleague, Mr. Sullivan. I think that the whole commission's doing a great job. I'm glad our counselor colleagues on that commission, but I really would love to see, as these council appointments come up, to open it up to anyone to see if maybe someone else is interested. Not to say that Elaine or Kip or anyone on there is not doing a great job, but I really would like to see these more diverse. So I just want to state that for the record. I'm going to be saying Audra Brissette's name because she applied for it in the past. She's a great Ward 2 constituent, and I'm just going to say the name because that's my vote, that's my right, not to deter from Mr. Foley or any of the great work that he's done. Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, I would just like to express to the rest of the council, I've been sitting on this committee now for almost a year, and it's tough getting your head around and all the stuff they had to go through in the getting this off the ground, and it wasn't a wildly popular subject to begin with. The way it's structured, the first person comes up after 1 year for appointment. So another person coming in now after just 1 year, I think it'd be more appropriate, and I agree with what Councilor Roman's saying, but as they come to the end of a 3-year term, that would be the time to start replacing these first couple, not after 1 year. They've just gotten started on this stuff. They've just into the first round of things, and another person coming in right now at this time would be way behind the curve. Anybody coming in new will be behind the curve, but after 1 year, I think each person, should go a full 3-year cycle before we consider replacing them.
Counselor McGivern.
I'd just like to speak in favor of Kip Foley, as I did when we interviewed him and we voted on the first go-around. As Councilor Sullivan pointed out, we have to start a committee or start a commission, you have to stagger terms. It's the only way you can do it. With 3-year terms, you got to, if you're appointing 3 people, you do 1, 2, and 3. In a sense, you know, Kip Foley drew the short straw by getting the 1-year term. And certainly, I think in 1 year, he has shown that he has attended the meetings, been attentive, and worked on the projects that are before the committee. I think that's valuable to the first go-round of when the commission starts recommending to us projects that they want to see go forward. I think the people that were with it from the get-go should be part of that. I think it would be unfair to any individual who drew the 1-year term to tell them 1 year later they are out for no reason other than the ability to appoint someone else from one's ward. I think it's important that that we stick with each of these individuals for at least 1 full term and let them go through what they intended to do and what they volunteered to do. I also pointed out a year ago, as I said, I worked with Kip both on HEDIC and I've seen him work diligently for all aspects, all issues within the city of Holyoke, on economic development projects, on jobs for all kinds of people, on breaking the poverty cycle is something that he always wanted to work on, and he thought that the city should be doing a better job on. So I think the reappointment to me is just the fairness of the situation, the staggered terms, and to a person who we felt was very capable a year ago.
Councilor Roman.
I just want to clarify, I'm not solely doing it for any individual ward of my own. So hell, I'll just throw out somebody's name from Ward 1, but I have to stand on the principle that I am, and I think we all are looking critically at every board and commission in the city, and the fact that we're only saying that 25% of them are of color or minority, and that a very low percentage, the lowest 2 are wards 1, 2, and 5, poor Linda and her ward as well. So we are underly represented, and the majority of this city and this body, and based off the conversations I even heard earlier, of people talking about, oh, I can go knock on my neighbor's door. That's great, unless you live in a 5-story building and you have all buildings next to you. It's a different city. We have a tale of 2 cities here. And so I have to stand on principle to say, unfortunately, even with this commission, there are still some needs for more diverse representation. And to make the notion that someone can't come in who is qualified today to pick up in a CPA committee to vote, to understand, that's not true. We see that on other boards and commissions of qualified people that come through and this is their first appointment. They jump right in, whether it's fire commission or whatever. So I'm going to stand on principle. It has nothing to do with patronage, and I made that very clear at the beginning. It's not against Mr. Foley. I think he's doing an exceptional job as well. But to only say that we as a body, when these come up, whether it's this year or next year or the following year, I would hardly encourage us, again, to open up the process, because we don't even know if anyone would have been interested after the 1-year term was open. Because, again, by design, it allows, maybe someone else would have been interested. We don't know, because we're just going to go right with the reappointment. And, again, not to diminish Mr. Foley, I think it's great. I'm going to shoot out another name from another ward for another individual who I think would be excellently qualified for this, but I have to stand on that principle. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilor Bacon.
I just want to make a quick comment. I was in the group that advocated a few years ago for opening up all positions when their term expires, whether it is a paid position or not. This body has consistently reappointed sitting people to commissions, most recently Council on Aging, et cetera, et cetera. So I would be very warm to changing the rule in whole. But, you know, it gets hard to pick and choose. One you do it, one you don't. So, I mean, I just like to have consistency, but I would support opening it up each time. But I think I would want to do it as a policy. Thank you.
So the motion is to reconfirm or reappoint for the CPA committee. The clerk will call the roll. State the name of the person that you'd like to fill the 3-year term.
Roman.
Israel Rivera.
Sullivan.
Kip Foley.
Tommen.
Kip Foley.
Bacon.
Kip Foley.
Valentin.
Israel Rivera.
Bartley.
Kip Foley.
Bresnahan,
Kip Foley.
LeBron Martinez,
Israel Rivera.
Lisi,
Kip Foley.
McGee,
Kip Foley?
McGivern,
Kip Foley.
eight for Foley, and 3 for Rivera.
What's your vote? You approve Foley for the 3-year term. Back to
Item 5.
5. Motion would be to receive.
Motion to receive the Fire
moved.
Commission minutes.
Motion is receive. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 6 is done. Petitions. Number 7 is petition from Mount Tom Solar LLC, special permit amendment to construct a flow plan overlay district at 200 Northampton Street.
Yeah, I want to make a motion, but make a motion to send it to DGR, but I just want to make a comment.
Second. Motion is to send to DGNR under discussion.
First,
Bartley.
just if I may address the administrative assistant, Mr. President, we'll put that on for the 19th of December as well. So we'll set up a public hearing for that on that same night. Okay, Ryan?
Me too, man. Me too.
Gracias.
No, this comes before the DGR committee. Yes, yeah, that we've had them before. It's this will be the 3rd time for the same property.
Okay, Counselor McGivern.
Along the same lines, I don't have the petition in front of me, Mr. President, but is this asking for a language change in the zoning, or is it asking for an amendment to a special permit?
Amendment to the latter. May I, Mr. President?
Counselor Bartley.
It's the latter, to address the chairman of the finance board. Yes, it's the latter, Joe. It's an amendment to the special permit, which we amended. This is the second amendment, if you recall. So, yes, it's an amendment. It's to comply with HFD regulations.
And we have language for an overlay district in our zoning text? I've never heard of it.
We'll find out.
We did, I'm sorry.
Counselor Lisi.
We adopted it, I want to say about 2 years ago, because there was the, redistricting of the floodplains to, based on, whatever environmental data was collected, and we as a body adopted the floodplain map, which created, in essence, an underlying floodplain.
Got it. I
overlay.
apologize, Mr. President. I missed floodplain.
It was so exciting.
So,
Floodplain 101, Counselor Bacon.
Counselor Bartley.
I just want to make the small little administrative point on this, is that they were before us once. We tried to amend the special permit, it failed. I said at the time they would come back because I knew they made an error on the thing. They in fact did come back, and we were able to amend the special permit. So we have now very slow growing plants around that field, but at least they're growing. But they, just for the committee members to remember, this same organization promised us that by 2016, the smokestack would be demoed. Today it still stands. So I'm just saying out loud to the committee that you have a broad range of authority. I'm not saying we will, but that smokestack is still there. This is the same organization that said by 2016. And besides, we also passed, Mr. President, if you will, an ordinance committee and in this body to allow them to erect a monopole for the cellular towers. So we did approve that as well. They haven't, that was to be in lieu of the smokestack. They were going to remove the equipment, but nothing's happened out
Maybe we
there.
can make it a condition.
Well, maybe we could make it, but I just want to say it aloud to the committee so they're prepared before the 19th. And I thank you for your time.
So motion is to send to DGNR.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Number 8 is a petition from Westfield Bank for a special permit for the installation of a drive-through ATM at 1650 North.
Motion
Mr.
sent to
President, I'd like
ordinance.
to receive and send to ordinance on this one.
Second, please.
So
And
motion is to send to ordinance. Under
Ryan,
discussion.
can you put that on the agenda for the next meeting, for which we have a public hearing continued for this same entity? Thanks. That's okay.
Make it happen, Ryan, come on.
The online is our legal posting, correct?
It is.
Can we do,
Thank you.
Mr. President?
So, Counselor Bartley.
Can we do that?
I don't know,
Because this is, we already have a continued public hearing for one section for this matter. This is a separate,
It's separate.
so we need to have advertise for a separate public hearing for this, I think. And just for the body, no, these have been generally going before DGR, but only because we've had this same issue in ordinance, it really makes sense for the issue to go to ordinance. I don't.
To advertise
With
that?
the holidays and
All
stuff,
right.
better to send an ordinance and we'll deal with the time frame correctly.
Yes,
Yes,
to keep them together.
To keep them together, yeah, but
Right,
I think this
but
requires
it was
a.
right on the notice, I think.
Okay, I think
yeah.
this requires a separate
Notice.
so I don't think we can add it to next week's
No,
agenda.
that's what I'm saying, we'll send it to ordinance and then
Right.
figure out the timing. Counselor Lisi?
No, that was just the point that I was going to make.
So with that.
Thank you, Counselor.
To ordinance, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And this goes to ordinance, right?
Number 9 is a petition for non-conforming use of
DGR.
4.7.2.
The motion to go to
Second.
DNR.
Motion to send to DGNR, all those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? President's report. I have a few things. One, if you'll notice around you, these new cameras. I told you it was gonna be updating, so we have new cameras in here now. Microphones, the microphones that you see are what we have. They're gonna buy new ones, they're gonna be similar, so they'll replace the ones that are beat up, but they'll be the same things. There's a lot of new wiring. I think Counselor Lisi and Counselor Vacan on this side, I wanna say Counselor Tallman, and it might be Counselor Anderson Burgos. You have boxes stuck to the back of your desk. I think it's you two, it might be Bartley.
So we won't kick them.
I highly doubt you're going to kick them, but they said to give you a heads up. That's for the new wiring. If you have feedback or anything else, Scott said just say, tone it down, and he'll tone it down. The room is over here now, the part half of the old election office, or registrar of voters, however we're calling that. So they have the back half with the new equipment, new cameras, new microphones. I highly recommend going over to see it. They are going to install within the software as to when they turn to you, your name will appear under while you're speaking and the ward you represent or at large. They'll also have, I think you were saying the agenda online as well, so people can pull it up the night of the meeting. So a lot of new things going on over there. I kept giving you the
You're
updates.
here.
He
Yay.
is finally here. He also said to let you know for meetings, for your committee meetings, that he's going to be bringing in some new technology so that if someone wants to present something, it won't be off, pulling up this old broken down stand or a chalkboard. It'll be something, he said don't call it a smart board, but it's the only thing I can think of. But it'll be something similar to that so that way we can present better and then people at home can see better. So
That's
they're moving
great.
along. It took a
Fantastic.
while, but he's doing great there. From the city clerk, she asked that on December 30th for the January meeting, that it'll be a Thursday, is the deadline at 2:30 to send in your orders. There is a conflict on Friday with staffing, so they're asking that you please send in orders by Thursday, December 30th, if you're trying to put on for the January meeting, not the Friday. We usually do Friday at 12. So just a heads up there. Also from the clerk, January 5th is the scheduled Christmas party. You will get the flyer and an email, but she wanted to give you a heads up that they scheduled it for January 5th, just so you can get it in your calendars. I know we always do it after Christmas to give everyone the ability to schedule accordingly. We did have the tax assessor in here. He had his public hearing with regards to tax classification. I do believe everyone has the booklet. If not, we can get you one. Information was very important there. Thank you cards from Hector and personnel. I do believe we all had the email on this. If there's someone that you're, did something, you want to send out a thank you, just to, show that you did notice it. He did drop off. I had him drop off thank you notes up here, just in case, anytime you want, in case someone in the department helped out. Also, I was up at the Holyoke Mall representing the council for the Salvation Army. They were setting up their table for the Salvation Army and the kettle ball or kettle basket there. And we started to talk as to, you know, what else the city council can do. They're asking if anyone wants to volunteer to stand out for a half hour to an hour ringing the bell. That's one option. I said, do you need coats or sweaters this winter? And they said, yeah, there's a shortage. Of which you'll notice there's a basket over here. There's a basket out front of the chamber. Coming to committee meetings, if you can remember to bring something in, or if people are coming in at home, drop them off. They're in need this winter for coats and sweaters. The basket will be out there and one in the chamber. Finally, to everyone, happy Thanksgiving. I know we'll say that at the end, but I just want to get that out there to you. And thank you for all your great work, everybody. With that, I always open up to you guys and gals to anything. Mike?
Yeah, I'd just like to remind everybody that on the 29th at Open Square, I'm going to do a sort of a tabletop expo. Just over the last couple of years, we've seen so much controversy and discussion around between the Farm Mansion, the Lynch School, you know, infrastructure in the city. We seem to have a lot of conflicting ideas and people not knowing quite what some of these undertakings involve. So I'll have tabletop displays regarding asbestos abatement, where it can be found, what the process is like. There'll be ones on brick and mortar issues. There'll be some on some of the historic properties in Holyoke, such as a train station. And this will be from 3 to 7 on the 29th at Open Square.
Anyone else? Councilor LeBron Martinez?
Yeah, I just want to share that there has been now this is going to be the third meeting that has been held in the Ward 1B regarding concerns that has been brought to my attention, and there was a mapping or a walkthrough in the neighborhood where individuals, residents, and some organizations joined through the walk. In the corridor of the area of the library down High Street by the corner of Sam's store and into like Suffolk Street and a little bit over Dwight Street. And there was identification of issues that are affecting that particular area of the neighborhood. And there's going to be a gathering again on the 20th where they're asking certain departments to come together. And this was from that. Some of you guys recommended that certain departments show up to this first meeting, which the first meeting was a great turnout. We had about 62 individuals who showed up, and I just want to say that it's, you know, we're working through quality of life issues, and we're going to be calling departments to come on this meeting because there's some concerns about things that was not clear about.
The date on that again is December 20th?
No, yeah, December 20th. It's the 20th.
And that's
6
November
o'clock.
20th?
It's going to be at the Holyoke Public Library.
6 o'clock, Holyoke Public Library,
Yes.
December 20th.
Correct, thank you.
Anyone? Councilor McGivern?
Just in the form of an announcement, Mr. President, the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round will be hosting the second annual holiday market. The first evening is November 30th, Friday, from 4 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the evening. There are currently 25 vendors. We have a max of up to 30 vendors. These vendors are from around all of New England. And last year there was some incredible amount of choice in terms of if you're looking for early Christmas presents or just looking to do a little bit of shopping. There are 3 food carts and entertainment throughout the weekend. Bands will be playing on. We have the Rotary stage that they use in Heritage Park set up in the parking lot next to the merry-go-round. We also have a beer and wine tent and plenty of food offerings. On Saturday afternoon, we coordinate with the Pioneer Valley Planning Railroad. Santa Claus will be coming in as traditional within the city of Holyoke. And of course, the holiday market will be open during the city's traditional lighting of the Christmas tree on that same day. If you're looking, or if you can spread the word, we appreciate it. But it's the second annual holiday market at the Holyoke Merry-Go-Round.
Anyone else? No? Okay, so we'll move on to reports of committee. Ordinance Committee, the Committee on Ordinance was referred in order at the City of Holyoke Personnel Department. Is this, yeah, this one is going. Review and make revisions to their current civil service process eliminating any barriers during interviews application process that preclude applicants with a criminal record. Given acceptance to any employment having to deal with elderly and youth, having considered the same, recommended that the ordinance be adopted.
Thank you, Mr. President. This was in committee for quite a while. We had tabled it in May for some reviews of language, and we did receive the final legal language, had some final discussion in committee at our last meeting. And so the motion is to adopt with a minor amendment to C1, where we will strike city standards and insert state law pursuant to our committee discussion relative to business with contractors.
Second.
So the amendment is on the bottom of the
C1.
legal language, it'll say C1. The city will do business only with contractors that have adopted an employment query-related process, practices, and standard that are consistent with city standards. We're striking city standards to be state law.
Correct.
And that was seconded.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amendment's been changed.
And the
Back to
other
you.
motion is to receive and adopt
Second.
the amended ordinance.
Second.
Motion is to receive and adopt, and would it be to pass a first reading? Because it's legal language.
It's, if that is do we need that, Crystal, for the ordinance? It's not zoning, but do we need the first, second readings on the amendment? Okay, so motion to pass the first reading?
Motion would be to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Up.
Aye.
Counselor Roman.
I just want to thank the committee on this, and I want to thank, I know they left the room, they were here on the pipeline tonight, but Jackie and Velez and all the amazing members from Neighbor to Neighbor, they were the originators of this. There's a lot of individuals who are formerly incarcerated here in the city of Holyoke, and I just left an amazing meeting with a cannabis industry company that hasn't even applied yet. They're down at Capri, talking about not only building a cannabis industry company, a cannabis growing company, but right next door they're going to be building a grow company that's going to be growing fruits and vegetables, and that's going to primarily focus on individuals who are formerly incarcerated. So Ban the Box is it's a state mandated law. We're just codifying it and really solidifying it, and I thank the committee chair and the committee members for really taking this up on the fact that Holyoke's only one of 5 or 6 municipalities in the state that are really codifying this and really putting this in our own ordinances. I really just want to thank my colleagues. I hope you all, we're, looking like we're heading towards approving. I want to thank, though, specifically the chairwoman, because I even forgot that it was sitting in the jacket, and she brought this back up. So I want to thank you personally, and I want to thank the committee for its hard work, and I want to thank Crystal for her 50,000 revisions and all the late nights that I kept emailing her about this and many other things. So thank everybody, and I want to thank the committee chair for her hard work.
All right, so all,
Motion to pass the second reading.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion that passage be ordained.
Second.
Motion that the passage be ordained. The clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the amended language changed.
Roman,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tommen,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Valentin,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Bresnahan, LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes?
McGivern.
Yes.
10 yeas.
With your vote, you approve the change. 10B is not enough signatures, so it'll go back to committee,
As well as 10C.
as well as 10C. 10D, the Committee on Ordinance referred in order that the handicap sign be placed in front of 145 Essex Street.
So the motion is that the order be adopted and to pass the first reading.
Motion is receive,
Second.
adopt, pass the first reading. Under discussion?
It's straightforward, disabilities reviewed and recommended in favor.
All right, so it's voting to put a handicap sign in at 145 Essex Street. Pass first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is passed the second reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion that the passage be ordained.
Motion that the passage be ordained. The clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the handicap sign.
Roman,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tommen,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Valentin,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Unanimous.
It's 10E. With your vote, you have approved it. So 10E, the Committee on Ordinances referred in order that the mayor or city auditor work with the various department heads, the impact to provide the capital budget. That was sent to finance.
That is finance.
So that'll be now 11E. So 10E is really a typo, or it should just be over in finance as 11E. Is that what we're saying for the agenda?
It came out of finance.
Okay. So that really is 11E, just so we mark it in the book. All right, Committee on Finance, 11A. Committee on Finance referred memorandum agreement awaiting disposition.
If I could, Mr. President.
Yep.
The disposition was, this was remained on the table in the Finance Committee, actually for the purpose of a copy in our archives. We had it on the agenda last night for the purposes of item number 11C, but it did not come out of committee. It just remains in the jacket for future reference.
So 11A is just still in finance.
Correct.
11B, Committee on Finance referred an order at $22,500 from pay solicitor to pay assistant solicitor. Motion is that it be adopted.
Just a quick brief of what happened in committee. This was introduced by the Law Department through the Mayor's office, through the Auditor's office, with the request of this transfer, and the simple explanation that was written on the request from the former city solicitor, Paul Pear, who was not available or no longer with the city at the moment. And we thought it was a simple transaction to deal with payments that were due to either Mr. Pear or someone in the office, but quite frankly, I don't know what it is. I believe it's something to do with payroll. I did talk with Krista before the meeting. We don't have a clear understanding. I would suggest just to lay it on the table, and I will talk to the auditor. The auditor was with us last night, but it was our new auditor. I'll talk to Bellamy and payroll and figure out what it is, if it's anything we have to adopt.
So motion would be to table.
Second.
11B.
Okay. I know it's not debatable, why don't we just send it back to committee?
I'd be happy to answer that. I'm glad Councilor Bartley asked it. We have a finance committee next week that has a full agenda. It's a, which I was going to discuss at the end of the committee reports, but it's the ongoing deliberations over the middle schools. Next Wednesday at 5:30, our advisor, Cinder McNary, is coming up from Boston to address us on bonding, to address us on depth override, to address us on options for funding school projects, and to talk to us about the numerous, or I shouldn't say numerous, but the number of different ways we could approach this. We designed this whole committee meeting with, after two different meetings this year and prior meetings, on why the schools are proposing the building and now the building of two middle schools. We certainly agreed cautiously to go forward, but we all want to understand what direction we're going to be headed in for funding these projects, which I think are worthy projects. So that meeting is going to be an important meeting to the finances. We're doing it at 5:30 because Cinder is coming in. Cinder has asked me to ask all city councilors if you have specific questions you would like to present in writing prior to the meeting. She would love to get a hold of those questions and be prepared to answer them at the meeting. If not, she will be prepared to answer as many questions as she possibly can. If anybody has a written question or a question they wish to pose in writing prior to the meeting, you're certainly can funnel it through myself and Ryan, and we will get it to Cinder. Other people on the agenda are going to include the school department receiver superintendent to talk about the closing of schools for cost savings, the assessors to talk about values, both what our values are this year with the communication we received earlier this month, and the auditor will be there, the treasurer will be there, and I anticipate a healthy discussion on what some options. There is nothing before the city council other than a discussion at this point until the mayor presents something to us. But I think this discussion, is important that we have so that we can work with the mayor and the auditor and our finance team to see if we can get everybody on a common ground for the funding of the project. So that's next Wednesday, 5:30. I'd appreciate it if everybody could make an attempt to make it. The reason to table this, Councilor Bartley, is only because if it's needed, we aren't going to be able to take it up in committee next week, so we'd be waiting a couple of meetings, which would be into January of next year before we could get to it. So I just thought if we left that, if it's a simple answer, we can leave it on the agenda tabled. If it's not a simple answer, we can always put it back in committee.
So the motion would be to table.
Correct.
And is that seconded? All right.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 11B is tabled. Just got an update from the boss. I give the wrong date, not December 30th, it's November 30th.
We knew what you meant.
I know you did, but she's watching, so. All right, so we got the date correct. November 30th for orders due to the conflict that will happen on.
Just remember, the holiday market is November 30th, and we have to get the orders in November 30th.
Oh, gotta get them in November 29th.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
It's easier for me to say.
So we're moving on. 11C. Committee on Finance for an order that head clerk 2,650 to director 2,650.
Make a motion to receive and to pass the first reading.
Motion is to
Second.
receive, adopt, pass first reading. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met last night. In attendance was the president of the Supervisors, Department Heads Supervisors Association, which is a recognized collective bargaining unit within the city. Two other members of the committee were with us on this item. The mayor was present. Also, the conservation director was present. What we have before us is a request after a performance-based evaluation to increase the conservation director's salary. The amount of increasing it would be the $2,650. It's coming from the head clerk in the auditor's department. That position, the auditor was with us last evening, is currently unfilled. It's a position that the auditor is hoping that she will fill it in the future, but she wants to get a better feeling for what the people in her department, or new department, do, and if it's this position or a similar position that would make more sense. I was very pleasantly surprised that our auditor, who has got less than a month under her, is taking some initiative in an item like this and seeing through the forest to not to be hasty, not just to jump. So there's excess money in that account. She signed off on it, and it would go into the line item for Andrew's account for the performance-based salary. Performance-based salary is something that this body over the years has pushed. When we get salary increases before us, sometimes a COLA increase is easy to explain, but when we're adjusting a salary, we've asked that all individuals that come under the, especially the salary positions and department heads and assistant department heads, should face a performance-based evaluation. Some of the items that were brought up last evening was that our conservation director is now also a sustainability director. Some of the new items that are added to his responsibilities and to his job description are the Green Communities Act project management, brownfield redevelopment in West Holyoke, the municipal vulnerability, preparedness, climate change adaptation. That I think a lot of discussion we understand is going, including here this evening, about that. Working with the greening of the gateway cities and the urban forestry department. The urban forestry department is an incredible success with the amount of new trees that have been brought into the city itself. He also is involved with recruiting and cultivating innovative ideas for the addressing of the climate change and mitigation as adapted. We think it's, after listening to both the association that was negotiated, the MOU is part of it, which is the item that remained in committee, but we had it for our availability, as did every city councilor, for over a month now. We think it's a fair request, a fair increase for a department head who is certainly shown that he is both a qualified but also a diligent worker within that position and not afraid to do work above and beyond the call of duty. The Finance Committee recommends that we adopt the transfer given the slight adjustment to his salary. It is not his max, according to the zoning. It would bring his salary from up to $62,041. The max is $69,094. So he's still about midway through his ordinance, salary ordinance itself.
Any further discussion? Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, I thought it was a very good meeting last night, and I really appreciate the chairman's summary. There's just a couple other points that were brought out. I'm just going to expand upon what the chairman just said. This is a bargaining unit, and now we're pulling out an individual, plucking it from the bargaining unit, and say you get a raise. So never mind the whole bargaining unit. That doesn't happen with the police or the fire or the public works. But it happens with this professional bargaining unit. And I made it clear last night how much I respect and admire Andrew's work, and I've worked with him my whole career here, and he does a great job. But that is a bizarre situation where one person is plucked out, and this one time you get a raise. And that could happen again. Mr. Burkott said, yes, Councilor, it could happen again. Begs the question, why do we have a bargaining unit? Well, but it is a bargaining unit, but yet we can make individual decisions. The second one is, this is taken from a department where we appoint the department head. Been on the job 30 days. If the mayor of the city is coming to you, you've been on the job 30 days, oh, can I take $2,600 out of your budget? What's the department head going to say at that point? Probably what she said, which is, sure, I've been here 30 days and, I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to take the money out of your budget. There were no other budgets from whence it could have come. And the department head last night said, yes, I did agree to it, and yes, she has to sign off to it. But she also said, yes, I would like to someday fill that head clerk position. Maybe not now, but I would like to fill the head clerk position, but that's where the money came from. She's also said that she maybe would like to get a consultant, maybe a former city auditor who was here for maybe 25 plus years, to come in and help her out a little bit. Maybe that could have helped pay for it. But now that money's been moved to give a department head a raise. What also came out of that meeting, the third thing came out of the meeting last night, is that I said, well, who's the supervisor? Well, the Conservation Commission. Well, that's not really right. The mayor's the supervisor. So I said, do we have timesheets? Nope. Are we ever gonna have timesheets? Nope. I don't want to micromanage. I just humbly say that, filling out timesheets, signing, attesting to your time, we've punched in and punched out, is a basic tenet of public employment. That's not micromanagement. But those are the three other things. I am going to vote for this, as I said, how much I respect and admire Andrew, and I know that he's underpaid and he does a great job. But those are three other things that came out of last night's meeting. Thank you.
So the motion is to pass the first reading. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion to pass the second reading.
Motion is to pass the second reading. The clerk will call the roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer.
Roman, Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Valentin,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Bresnahan,
Yes.
LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
unanimous.
With your vote, you approve the transfer. 11D, the Committee on Finance referred that the City Council adopt the provisions of Section 63, 64, 65 of Chapter 139 of the Acts of 2012, order that it be adopted.
Make a motion to receive and adopt.
Motion is to receive, adopt, under discussion. Councilor McGee.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had Cheryl Dugray before us last night. We had a very healthy and lengthy conversation on this item. Cheryl was very competent in her job and very knowledgeable of both the city and the more important PEROC and state rules of retirement itself. Just for a quick recap so we get everybody on the same page. Survivors there's two types of survivors that get benefits, actually three, but prior to 1996, there is no option C for spouses of retirees. No option of option C, meaning that if a retiree succumbs during the retirement, option C allows for spouses to continue to receive the retirement benefit if that option is chosen up front. Before 1996, survivors were handled under the Chapter 139, the Acts of 2012. They were more recently amended, but they are both Section 101 survivors and a section known as Section 9, I believe, that identifies the two possible survivors that come under this type of a benefit. Currently, there are 14 members who are receiving the benefit. There's a potential of 13 additional members that are still out there that predate 1996 and no option C. Therefore, if something happens, they could qualify for that. There is not a request for additional monies. Councilor Barley asked a great question last night about the impact on unfunded liabilities, where we are with unfunded liabilities. We had a discussion on that. We did have a discussion on the merits of this. Cheryl Dugray did explain to us that, the retirement board voted unanimously for this. Our new auditor, who is going to be a member of the retirement board, is also in favor of this and understands the importance of this. We chose, or the city, I should say, the retirement board chose not to adopt back after 2012, when it could have gone from 6,000 to 9,000, and they're asking us now with the latest to go to the $12,000 for each increase for each of these survivors of retirees. The committee recommends that we do adopt this. It will not increase the city's of funding into the retirement system, and it's a minimum impact on unfunded liabilities. And with the amount of people, I think it makes sense that we take care of these survivors. So the committee's recommendation is to adopt the language, to adopt the law itself, to endorse the retirements board vote of giving the $12,000.
Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, I want to thank the chairman. Again, an excellent meeting last night. It was very informative, and Ms. Dugray for her. I just want to point out a couple of small things that I thought this is very interesting. The Holyoke Retirement Board started in 1937. I thought that was a pretty neat little fact, which I didn't aware of. The city's portion of the retirement system, about $17.5 million at this point. There are about 1,100 Cheryl was talking really historical perspective about what happened in 2008 and with the market crash and how that really affected the unfunded pension liability. She said right now, based on actuarial tables, and she did a really impressive job summarizing it. We're about 68% funded. I asked Cheryl to follow up on 3 or 4 things last night. I guess Joe, if maybe through the chair, if Joe could just follow up with Cheryl just to make sure we get those things, those questions answered from last night. But one of the things she said is we're 68% funded, meaning we're of course 32% not funded. So what does that mean exactly? That means we're about $130 million out of from being fully funded. And there's numerous reasons for that. One of which is that Holyoke's not a wealthy city. The second of which is that, yeah, we started in 1937, but there were about 50 years of pensions before that. So I mean, all that stuff adds up. And I mean, we did hear about the city of Holyoke's ROI, return on investment, has been, top 1 or 2 in the Commonwealth in several years in the last few years. And that's something to be very proud of. Lastly, Mr. President, this does add to the unfunded liability. So it does add $350,000. But when you compare that to $130 million and you factor in the benefit this will have to widows and single parents that are single individuals that are affected by this, I think it's a very important thing that we pass, and I appreciate it coming before us, and I fully support it. Thank you.
So, Councilor McGarry.
Just, and Councilor Bartley always makes some good points. We appreciate his presence at the Finance Committee. The unfunded liability history is something I think, just to remind everybody, in 1937, when the acts were adopted and retirement became an important part of municipalities, the retiree, the city municipal employee, received, if they worked 20 years, a full retirement, even if they only paid into the system for 3 years or 4 years of the end of their career. They still received a benefit that reflected their entire career. This act, right or wrong, I'm not sure if they were even thinking about this back in 1937, created an unfunded liable retirement system throughout the Commonwealth. Many communities, by putting additional monies on an annual basis into the retirement system, have reduced their unfunded liabilities. People like the Gateways, like the city of Holyoke, don't have that advantage to be able to put the additional money in, although I think we've made an effort over the years to try to reduce it. And more important, we've made an effort to try to reduce it by investing the money. The current person that we invest with is Ray DePelto, not only a longtime Hoyoker, but a former director of the retirement board itself prior to Danny Owens, and an incredibly knowledgeable person in the area of investing, retirement funds themselves. So I think our retirement board does a great job, and we do have to keep in mind the unfunded liability will be an issue, but we have to keep slowly trying to reduce it.
Oh, Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, this was a tough thing to get our heads around, but even though we're picking up 350,000, adding to the unfunded liability, we had a $4 million reduction in the unfunded amount, but the actual gain this year was $16 million. That gain has to be spread out over 4 years. So we're not able to recognize the whole thing. And the same thing as what we learned the other night is true if there's a bad year like there was in 2008 or other ones, that all of that loss isn't taken in any 1 year either. So it kind of smooths out some of the ups and downs, but we actually did much, much better this year than what the numbers would indicate.
Councilor Tallman.
Thank you. Very informative meeting, and I think Cheryl did a great job explaining everything to us. And Joe, good way of running the meeting. Councilor Bartley and Councilor Bacon asked some good questions to Cheryl. And I think just a couple years ago, we were at 62%, or maybe last year, unfunded. Now we're up to 68%. So the investments are doing good. This is not costing any more into the city. And I believe she said the next 2 years that the city's will be level. It's not going to be an increase, which is a good thing, because over years, usually you're looking at $500,000 to $1 million more put into the retirement fund. So hopefully we'll continue on this track, and I think this is a good thing for the people that really deserve it.
So with that, the motion is to receive and adopt. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Joe, you don't need a roll call for that?
I believe so, yes,
Yeah.
Mr.
So
President.
you need a motion to receive, adopt, pass the first reading.
Right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Pass the second reading.
Motion to pass the second
Second.
reading. Clerk will call a roll. If you're voting yes, you're voting for the change.
Roman,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes.
Tallman,
Yes.
Bacon,
Yes.
Valentin,
Yes.
Bartley,
Yes.
Bresnahan,
Yes.
LeBron Martinez,
Yes.
Lisi,
Yes.
McGee,
Yes.
McGivern,
Yes.
unanimous.
What's your vote? You approve the change. There was no public safety, no public service. Oh, wait a minute. There's something. Oh, sorry, 11E. Sorry, that 10E was really supposed to be 11E, so we're... Committee on Finance was referred in order that the mayor and city auditor work with various department heads thus impacted to provide capital budget to the city council fiscal year 20, to not have capital budgets in short side and ultimately very costly to the taxpayer, have considered that it recommended be adopted. Councilor McGivern, Tallman, and Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll make a motion for discussion to receive and adopt.
Motion is to receive,
Second,
adopt, under
And
discussion.
Please, is this on the agenda? We did vote it out.
It
Yes.
was, they listed it, Joe, as 10E. It was really supposed to be 11E, so it was a typo in the
Okay.
agenda.
I didn't get my agenda in the mail. No fault to Irma, I know that, because the postmark said something about Florida. It didn't show up until today. And I did get the email, so I did have it, but I missed that 10E. Thank you. We did have a discussion on this item last night, and we did vote it out of committee. And the discussion centered around better ways to use or how to use a stabilization fund, but at the same time to make sure we're protecting the purpose of the stabilization fund, which is to be a reserve in terms of protecting our finances, but also making us look worthy of a good bond rating when we go to visit the bond Moody's and the bond raters on in Wall Street. The discussion centered around a number of different things, which included the possibility of taking a percentage of. Am I on the right one?
Nope.
Well, is anybody going to correct me?
It's on the capital budget.
All right, let's get to the capital budget. Stabilization, I asked, is the one that should have came out. The capital budget we did have a discussion on that. There is and always has been a 5-year capital plan. We have not seen that in probably the past four cycles of budget, which we've brought it to the attentions of different people that we'd like to have that 5-year cycle capital budget so that we have an understanding of what are the needs of all the departments. And each year that capital budget was supposed to be tweaked and, if necessary, changing the priorities within a department itself. Police department, maybe their number one priorities is police cruisers. If they catch up to date on the police cruisers, maybe their number one priorities is computers or something to do with the dispatch room itself, similar to both the fire department and, of course, the DPW. So we had the auditor with us, our new auditor. She understood the meaning of this and immediately agreed that she will work on creating a format, a spread chart for the department heads that will show their capital outlay needs. At our request, she will make sure that this is going to be available when we do the budget each year, meaning we should get copies of it prior to the budget or at any time that we want to review it throughout the course of the year. We suggested to the mayor that, they become more diligent with the department heads, even if the auditor is the department that will facilitate this, but that the mayor would work with the department heads on making sure that all department heads that are responsible for a budget that requires any capital outlay needs, that they would, keep the auditor updated on that and keep a prioritized list. So the committee is recommending that the order's been complied with. I think it's a fantastic order, and I think it's something that we all should be kept aware of, not just transparency, but for our knowledge, so we can make better decisions on the budget.
Councilor Bacon.
I just want to make a comment and compliment the chair and the mayor who came down to the committee. And he was down on one item, and the chairman prevailed upon him to stay and discuss 2 or 3 more of the budget items that were on the agenda. And it was good to see the mayor
I'm
down
going to
here.
pay for that, though,
Oh, well, and the dialogue. I thought it was a good thing.
All right, so the motion is that the order has been complied with. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Mr. President, could we move into executive session after the reading off that there have been no other reports of committees?
Yep, so Public Safety, Public Service, DGNR, Charter and Rules, Joint Committee on Schools, and City Council, there were none. Item 18 from motion to orders and resolution from Councilor McGee, or that, oh no, wait, sorry. Item 19, sorry. Order that the City Council go into executive session during the November 20 meeting to discuss litigation. So motion would be to go out of order, take up 19. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 19 is to go in executive session, so the motion would be to recess the City Council meeting for about half hour or 20 minutes. What 20 minutes? 20 minutes to a half hour to go into executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those
Mr. President.
opposed? And then I think we have to do executive session roll call.
We have to go. You have to announce that we will return.
Yeah. Do we have to do the roll call to go in executive session? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, so.
And Councilor Bartley is correct. We have to announce we're going to return for the regular business,
We will return
what's on the
at
agenda.
9:30 to do motions, orders, and resolutions as part of the full agenda. Now, the clerk will call the roll to go into executive session. She'll call your name. If you're here, say present.
Anderson Burgos. Bartley.
Here.
Bresnahan.
Here.
Leahy. LeBron Martinez.
Here.
Lisi.
Here.
McGee.
Here.
McGivern.
Yes.
Roman.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Tallman.
Here.
Bacon.
Here.
Valentin.
Here.
With that, we'll be in recess till 9:30 and go into executive session. We'll go into the back room, which is, because of the new microphones, you never know.
You should see the new room. It's unbelievable.
It is.
It's like a recording studio.
It's awesome, and I swear.
Did you just put
Bartley. Yes. Bresnahan. LeBron Martinez.
Yes.
Lisi.
Yes.
McGee. Yes. McGivern.
Yes.
Roman. Sullivan.
Yes.
Tallman.
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
Valentin.
Yes.
We're out of executive session. It is 9:30. We'll go back to the full city council meeting for November 20th, 2018. And we're now back to motions, orders, resolution. Item 18 from Councilor McGee that the DPW replace the Holyoke Community College sign at the corner of Jarvis Ave and East Hampton Road. It is faded. Motion would be to receive, adopt, send to DPW.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Councilor McGivern.
Item 20, if we could make a motion to receive and pass the first reading.
Second.
Motion, item 20 is to receive, pass first reading, order that there hereby be appropriated $4,477.56 as follows. Patrolman injured on duty. Motion passed first reading. Under discussion, Councilor McGivern.
I think everybody understands it's just a transfer of monies from one line item into the injured on duty for accounting purposes only. It doesn't change anything.
18 was received. And just for reference, 2 people. So all, pass first reading, all those in favor?
Aye.
All
Make a motion to
opposed?
pass the second reading.
Motion is
Second.
passed the second reading. Clerk call roll. If you vote yes, you're voting for the transfer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
We're good.
We're good.
Need 7.
So right after Nelson, does you go to the next person down?
Sullivan.
Yes.
Tallman.
Yes.
Bacon.
Yes.
Valentin.
Yes.
Bartley.
Yes.
Bresnahan. LeBron Martinez.
Yes.
Lisi.
Yes.
McGee.
Yes.
McGivern.
Yes.
Nine votes.
Oh, Bresnahan's back.
What's your vote? You approve the transfer. 21.
Make a motion to suspend the rules, Mr. President,
Yep.
Second.
for the purpose of taking up items 21, 22, 23, and 24 as a package.
Second.
Motion is suspend rules, take up 21 to 24 as a package. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Make a motion to refer each of these items to the Committee on Finance.
Motion is
Second.
to receive and for the finance. 21 is the Governor's Local Law Enforcement Equipment Technology Grant. 22 is an incentive grant. 23 is a youth jobs grant. 24 is the capital planning projects grant, or bond, actually, total bond. All the finance, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 25 was already done. 26 from Counselor Bacon, order that do not block box be painted at Homestead Ave near the, from the driveway of Twin Shop, Dino's Plaza to driveway of Strum's, exits.
Receive, adopt, refer to DPW.
Motion is receive, adopt, and refer to DPW. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? 27 from Counselor Bacon. Order that certificates of appreciation be given to the guardsmen who supported the helicopter landing at Mackenzie Field.
And I believe Counselors Tallman and Bartley had asked to be signed
Adding
on.
Counselor
Yep,
Tallman.
thank you.
Counselor
Thank you.
Bartley. Counselor McGee.
Sullivan.
And
President.
so how about everybody? Does
All.
everybody want to sign on?
Aye.
That's fine. Yeah,
Aye.
everyone.
So
Friendly
motion
amendment
Friendly amendment.
that we ask the guardsmen to show up in the helicopter to receive the,
I like that.
For a free ride?
It was a nice addition to the ceremony, though, and greatly appreciated. So the motion is to receive and adopt
Motion is to receive and adopt, and
and
these are
issue the certificates through the veterans.
the veteran. Okay.
Director.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 28. From Counselor Bacon, order that an update on the sewer collections be provided before rate increase is considered.
So receive and adopt and refer to ordinance because we are opening the public hearing on Tuesday, but we haven't had an update in a while.
All right, so receive, adopt, refer to ordinance with a, and they'll have to.
Copy to DPW and to, I know the auditor had sent us an update last, but I don't know if the new auditor would be in possession of that.
All right, with a copy to
DPW for
DPW and the auditor.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
And, yeah, they can send it as a communication to the committee. We can take it that way in the public hearing if they can't be in person, either way.
Yeah, just say it wants an update of
But
the
we
collections.
just,
Yep,
yeah, we need data.
we'll get it.
Thank
Twen-
you.
29 from Counselor Anderson Burgos, order that temporary speed humps be placed on Woods Ave and that a speed study be done on the corner of Woods Ave and Hillside. Residents living in the area have noticed a increase in traffic using excessive speed. Motion be receive, adopt, send to DPW, and a copy to Public Safety to get the report.
Second. Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? 30 is from Counselor Bartley. City Council invite in representatives from Mount Holyoke College to appear at the DGNR meeting. Ties between our city and the college should be strengthened, so.
DGR, please.
DGNR, motion to send to
Second.
DGNR. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Do you have
31.
I do. I do.
The City of Holyoke declare the month of
Go
March
on.
as Irish American Heritage Month.
Uh,
So 31, Counselor Barley?
Yeah, this is a motion to receive and adopt and refer as indicated in the order to the Parade Committee and to the AOH.
Second.
Motion is receive, adopt with information to those appropriate organizations. Adding Counselor Bresnahan,
Could you ask me on alter that,
Tallman.
Mr. Bartley, if that's okay with you?
Sure.
McGee.
Being a fellow AOH?
Yeah, you got it.
Thank you.
All right. So that was, did we say all in favor? All
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Just making sure I forgot. 32 from Counselor Bartley. The City
Just
Council.
under discussion, Mr. President, I just forgot one. Just, I'll work with Ryan on making sure those are referred out properly. So Ryan, you and I will get together on those, okay?
For 31.
Or 31.
Okay.
Yes, I should have said that earlier, sorry.
So 32 is that the City Council order the Park and Rec Commission to work with the State Department of Conservation and Recreation on planting more trees in our city parks. The following is a brief list of suggestions, and then we have 1 through 10 listed.
Yeah, right, so, we're gonna, I'm gonna motion to, receive this and refer this to, Park and Rec and to DPW and to, DCR and Conservation Commission. And, I hope all the councilors note that this pretty much covers a lot of the wards in the city. And, very excited about it. We also, if I may, Mr. President, I didn't get a second on that, so if I could just get a second.
Well,
Second.
Just to be clear, it's motion to receive and adopt with those.
Yeah, receive and refer. I guess there's really nothing to adopt, but, well, I mean, you can receive, refer, and adopt, yeah, sure.
So receive, adopt, sending to DPW, Park and Rec, DCR,
and Conservation Commissioner.
Conservation.
Yeah, in discussion, you'll notice that there's some, this is right from DCR, and they have a lot of trees to plant, and the city forester, please just, and to.
Adding the city forester.
Please, city forester, Mr. Tuig. They have a lot of trees to plant, and this is in the social justice neighborhood that we worked so hard on a few years ago to develop a plan for this. I just want to also note, Mr. President, that we have our own tree nursery that this body started 5 years ago, 6 years ago maybe, and there's now 400 trees ready to go. And we just planted 30 of them on Clark Street. So that's very exciting. And I think there's going to be some more opportunity. And those trees can go anywhere, on private grounds or public. Could go in a tree belt, could go in a commercial district, could go in a residential district. And there's all sorts of species, tall, small, and in between. And it's really exciting thing. And for those that aren't aware, I think all of us are, but the nursery's on Berkshire Street in the Springdale section, near the Casella and near the old incinerator plant. And it's just been a real win. And while we started here, Andrew Smith deserves a tremendous, and Mr. Tuig deserves a tremendous amount of credit for the work that's been done there. And these trees are now being disseminated in the city, and there's a lot more to go.
All right, so motion was receive, adopt, refer to the following committees, including the forestry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Late files. File A from Councilor McGivern, order that the sum of $13,039 million be $13,000.39 million be appropriated to pay the cost of system-wide capital planning project.
Received for the Committee on Finance. This is actually replacement language for
Right.
item 24, which is on the agenda.
Yeah, it's just a correction, so it's not really a late file. Since it's a correction, we put it that way, so. Motion is to send to finance. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? B is from Councilor McGivern, order that $5,500 from head clerk audit 2, and there's a series of places.
Received for the Committee on Finance.
Motion is
Second.
received, refer to finance. All those in favor? All
Aye.
opposed? C is $6,172 from head clerk audit 2, another series of departments.
Received for the Committee on Finance.
Second.
Finance, all those in favor, all opposed. D, from Councilor McGivern, order that $438 be appropriated from head clerk audit to assistant director park and rec. Finance?
Finance.
Motion is for finance, all those in
Not
favor?
personal
All those-
privilege, if I could, and I think Council President will appreciate this, not to debate anything, which we can't. I did have a talk with our new auditor about this. These were filed by our acting auditor. I know sometimes financial auditors come in late, but they seem to come in late all the time. And she's in agreement with us that she's going to try to curb this completely, that these will make the agenda, in the future or be held for the next agenda. We're going to give our new sheriff a little time to live up to that.
With that, there's no other items. Motion be
Motion adjourned.
adjourn. And also to say thank you and happy Thanksgiving to
Happy
everyone. I hope
Thanksgiving.
you have a
Thanksgiving,
lovely
everybody.
break. To adjourn, all those in favor? All opposed? We stand adjourned.
I'm not taking these today.